Welcome to Beacon English Podcast, and welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the show where we take complex information and really distill it down into knowledge you can actually use.
That's the goal.
And today, we're on a mission that I think is perfect for anyone out there trying to learn English and needing, immediate practical results. We've got this fantastic blueprint in front of us. It's a detailed framework that outlines 10 very specific, very small daily habits. And they're designed not just to help a little, but to dramatically speed up your journey to fluency.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to speaking and just producing the language on the spot.
That's absolutely right. And the core idea here, I think, is a huge step away from those, traditional, often overwhelming study methods.
Right, like trying to memorize a whole dictionary.
Exactly. This whole material is really centered on the surprising power of consistency, on small, manageable steps. So our job today isn't just to, read you a list of 10 habits. We're doing a true deep dive. We're going to analyze the cognitive why behind every single action. We want to connect these tiny little daily steps back to the real principles of cognitive science and how we actually acquire language.
Because you need to understand the mechanics, right?
Yeah.
You need to understand why these small efforts are so incredibly effective at, basically rewiring your brain for English.
That's it. If you don't know the why, you won't stick with it.
I really feel like that connection is the missing piece for so many learners. It's one thing to know what to do, but understanding why it works, that gives you the conviction, the motivation to keep going, even on days when you feel tired or you don't think you're making progress. Our whole aim here is to arm you with the belief that these habits, no matter how small they seem, 10 minutes here, 3 sentences there, are scientifically sound ways to achieve that automaticity we're all looking for.
And the material is so clear on this.
Yeah.
If you can just guarantee the consistency, the progress takes care of itself. It's a cumulative effect. And what's so critical about this entire approach right from the start is the focus on defeating what you could call psychological friction.
Friction. Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, as humans, we naturally resist tasks that feel like a big commitment or a chore.
Sure, like I have to study for an hour. My brain immediately wants to do something else.
Exactly. The whole idea here is that by making the required action trivially small, just a little burst of listening, learning only a couple of words, you bypass your brain's own internal resistance.
It's too small to argue with.
It's too small to argue with. This low commitment entry point is what guarantees you'll do it every day.
Yeah.
And that daily adherence is what you need to retrain your neural pathways for automatic English. So start small, but the results, compounded over time, they become huge.
Okay, I love that. Let's unpack this with the first and, I guess, the most fundamental habit, the one that's described as the starting block for everything else.
Let's do it.
So we're starting with section 1, training the input senses. This is all about listening and mimicry.
The foundation.
Habit number 1, the essential foundation, as you said, listen to English every day. And the instructions are really specific here. It's about consistency over intensity. Just 10 minutes a day.
Just 10.
So my question is, why does simple, maybe even passive listening take priority over everything else? Why is this the non-negotiable first step?
Because we have to start with this fundamental concept that the material calls the baby analogy. And it really is the bedrock of how we all learn language.
Okay.
If you just watch a child learning to speak, they spend months, sometimes a year or more, just listening, purely observational. They are silent learners long before they become active speakers.
Right, they're just absorbing everything around them.
They're absorbing everything. And that process doesn't just magically vanish when you're an adult trying to learn a second language. Your brain, regardless of your age, absolutely requires enough time to just map out and absorb the entire sound environment of that new language.
But here's the question I know people are thinking. If I'm only understanding, say, 20% of what I'm hearing, isn't that 10 minutes just wasted time? Shouldn't I focus on something I can fully 100% comprehend?
That's a great question. And it's a very common misunderstanding of what the brain is doing in this early phase. The goal here is exposure. It is not 100% immediate comprehension.
Okay.
Your auditory system is working on a much deeper level. Think about it. Every language has a kind of unique acoustic fingerprint, a unique music. This 10 minutes a day trains your brain to recognize the specific rhythm of English. The stress patterns, the timing, and the sounds that might not even exist in your native language. And of course, the typical speed of it.
So my brain is kind of adjusting its sound map or something like that. Can you expand on what that actually means?
Sure. So through your first language, your brain develops a really efficient filter, a phonemic map. And this filter learns to throw away sounds that it decides are irrelevant for communicating in your native tongue.
So it's ignoring things it doesn't think it needs.
Exactly. For example, some speakers whose native language doesn't have a difference between the L and R sounds, they really struggle with that in English. Why? Because their brain's filter lumps them together as basically the same sound.
Ah, okay.
So consistent listening, even if it's passive, it gently forces your brain to recalibrate that filter. It starts to stop treating English sounds as just, noise, and begins recognizing them as distinct, meaningful units of language.
That makes so much sense. If I can't even train my ears to hear the difference, there's no way I'll be able to produce the difference when I try to speak.
You've got it. That's why the material calls this a gentle warm-up for your ears. It takes away that enormous pressure of having to perform or understand everything right away.
Yeah.
You're just letting your brain, which is this magnificent pattern recognition machine, silently start to work. It starts identifying where words begin and end, common phrase structures. Even if all you're getting is the overall melody of a sentence, that is incredibly valuable input.
Okay, so let's get practical. What are the best low-friction ways to get this 10 minutes in every day?
The material really emphasizes integrating English into things you already enjoy.
Right, so it's not a chore.
Not a chore. Music is fantastic. Instead of just listening, maybe try to focus on the lyrics of an English song. Short video clips are great. A trailer for a movie you want to see, or just one single scene from a TV show you love.
And what about subtitles? Do they help or hurt?
They absolutely help. The material says that even listening while you watch with English subtitles counts, because your eyes are supporting the comprehension, but your ears are still doing that crucial work of absorbing the sound patterns.
Okay.
The whole point is that the material should be low stress, so you can actually do it every single day. That's the power of the 10 minutes, is how you train your brain to recognize the music of the language.
Okay, that flows perfectly into habit number 2, which takes that input and makes it physical. It's practice shadowing out loud.
The active part.
Yes. So this means listening to a native speaker and then immediately repeating what they say, almost like you're their echo. You're trying to match their speed, their pronunciation, and this seems critical, their rhythm. Now, this sounds incredibly hard. It sounds like it takes a lot of focus. If I'm already listening, why do I have to add this step of, immediate replication?
Shadowing is the absolute critical bridge from just passively understanding to actively physically producing the language. And you're right, it is challenging at first, but it's also the single most efficient way to develop muscle memory for English speech.
Muscle memory. So not in my brain, but in my mouth.
In your mouth, exactly.
Yeah.
We often know intellectually how a word is supposed to sound. We've read it. But our mouth is physically unprepared to actually make the movements to produce that sound, especially not quickly and naturally.
So we're really talking about physiological training, like training the muscles. Which specific muscles are we even targeting here?
We're training all the articulatory organs, so your tongue, your lips, your jaw, even the soft palate at the back of your mouth. Think about a sound that's a common struggle, like the English, the sound. It's just not present in many, many languages.
Right.
To produce that sound, you have to place your tongue between your teeth. That's a movement that feels physically awkward, even unnatural if your native language never required it. Shadowing forces your mouth to make these non-native, very specific physical movements over and over again, and at speed. It actively connects the sound signal. I hear the sound directly to the motor command. My tongue moves here to make the sound.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. We're building the physical ability to move our mouths in ways that feel foreign at first.
Precisely. If you only think about the word, that muscle memory never gets built. Then when you try to speak in a real conversation, your mouth stumbles because it hasn't actually practiced the moves at the right speed. Shadowing is like a high-intensity workout for your mouth. It ensures that when you need a word, the physical response is just automatic.
And this is where the source material gets very specific about intonation. Why is shadowing so good for improving the music of the language, the intonation?
Because intonation, that rise and fall of your voice, the stress on certain syllables, the pauses, it's arguably more important for sounding natural than having perfect grammar.
Really? More important than grammar?
In many ways, yes. For being understood, for sounding natural. If you use the rhythmic pattern of your native language when you're speaking English, you might sound very flat or choppy, or you might even convey the wrong emotion without realizing it. Shadowing forces you to mimic the native speaker's stress and their pitch. By trying to echo that rhythm right away, you start to internalize the correct English intonation patterns. It just makes your speech sound so much more natural, and it makes it much easier for native speakers to follow what you're saying.
And the beauty of this is you don't need a lot of material to practice with.
Not at all. You could just use short little segments, maybe 1 or 2 sentences from that 10 minutes of material you were already listening to. Listen to it a few times to get the rhythm, then try to shadow it. It's a completely judgment-free, active way to practice speaking without needing a conversation partner. You're building that automated physical skill that is the foundation of fluent, fast speech.
Shadowing really is the bridge, then. It connects the brain's recognition of the sound to the mouth's ability to produce it. And it does all that while focusing on that critical element of intonation.
That's a perfect summary.
Okay, so now let's transition. We're moving on to building the internal engine of language, our vocabulary, and how fast we can process it. Let's tackle habit number 3. Learn 1 to 3 new words a day.
Right, and I know that number sounds so counterintuitive. We live in a world of language apps that promise, you'll learn hundreds of words in a month.
Yeah.
But the constraint, just 1 to 3 words, is actually the cognitive genius of this habit.
I have to push back a little here. If my goal is fluency and I want to get there as fast as possible, why on earth wouldn't I try to learn 20 words a day? Why are we prioritizing quality over just sheer quantity?
It comes down to a principle called cognitive load and just the basic mechanics of how our memory works. Your brain has a very limited capacity for moving new, complex information from your short-term or working memory into your long-term memory. That's where it needs to be truly learned and ready for you to use.
Okay, so there's a bottleneck.
There's a huge bottleneck.
Yeah.
When you try to learn 20 new disconnected words in one sitting, you just overwhelm the system. It's like trying to carry 20 watermelons at once. You're going to drop them all.
Right.
The material explicitly says that people who try to cram, they get tired and they forget them. The effort is completely wasted because your retention rate just plummets when your brain is under that much stress.
So the brain actually prioritizes the depth of how you process something over the breadth of how much you're throwing at it, at least when it comes to new words.
Absolutely. When you limit yourself to just 1 to 3 words, you can actually give your brain the time it needs to create a strong, durable neural pathway for each one. And this means not just looking up a single definition. It means dedicating real time to 3 critical steps.
What are the 3 steps?
Okay, number 1, really understand the meaning, maybe in a few different contexts. Number 2, perfect the pronunciation, maybe by shadowing that specific word a few times. And number 3, this is the most important one. Find and use the word in a complete, meaningful sample sentence.
Context is everything. I've heard this before. A word by itself is easy to forget, but a word that's tied to a story or a scenario, that sticks.
That's precisely it. Acquiring vocabulary requires what scientists call deep encoding. For example, let's say you learn the word flourish. Reading the definition, to grow or develop in a healthy way, is good. That's step 1. But then creating a sentence like, after moving to the new city, her career began to flourish. Well, that ties the word to a specific context professional success. It makes the word immediately usable and much easier to retrieve later.
And it also shows you how the word works with other words, like began to flourish.
Yes. It shows you which prepositions or verbs tend to go with it. You're not just learning a word, you're learning how to use it in a real sentence.
And if we look at the math on this, the consistency model really makes a huge difference over time, doesn't it?
It is the power of compounding interest, but applied to language learning. Let's just stick with the manageable number.
Right.
3 words a day.
Okay.
That's 21 solid, contextually understood words in a week. That's over 80 words in a month. If you keep that low-friction habit up for a year, you've internalized almost 1,000 new, high-quality, genuinely usable words.
Wow. When you put it like that.
And that massive vocabulary boost is achieved with 0 burnout, simply by making the daily tasks small enough that you can't fail. This is how you build a real, non-fragile vocabulary.
The insight there is so powerful. It's not about the number of words you look up, but about how many you truly cement into your long-term accessible vocabulary every single day.
That's the key.
Okay, this leads us to our 4th habit, which is a fascinating one. Thinking in English. This is this entirely internal, silent practice. But the material describes it as super effective for your outward fluency. How does this secret conversation with yourself actually change your ability to speak quickly in the real world?
This habit directly attacks the single biggest obstacle to fluency in the beginning stages, and that is the internal translation barrier.
Right, the bottleneck you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. When you're in a conversation, most learners are stuck in this slow, 3-step cognitive process. First, you have a thought in your native language. Second, you mentally translate that thought into English. And third, you finally speak the English output. That whole sequence is just painfully slow.
And that translation step is what kills any sense of spontaneity. It's why you freeze up in real conversations.
It's exactly why you freeze. Thinking in English is a cognitive shortcut. It's an exercise where you force your brain to create a direct line from a concept to the English expression. You're training your English-specific neural pathways so that when you see a cat, the word cat just pops into your head directly, bypassing your native language entirely.
So where should a learner start with this if it feels really difficult? If my default internal monologue is always in my native language, how do I actually flip that switch?
You have to start with really low-demand, immediate, and concrete things. Begin by just describing simple actions or things in your environment in the present tense. Don't try to think about complex philosophy.
No, yeah.
Just silently narrate your daily routine. As you're doing it, think, I'm pouring coffee, this coffee is hot, I'm putting on my shoes, the sky looks gray today. The source suggests just simple labels. This is a cup, that a blue car.
So the key is just to force your brain to keep activating its English system for these constant low-stakes thoughts.
Precisely. It's a continuous mental workout. And then once you get good at the simple descriptions, you can move on to something more advanced, like internal planning. Plan out your day, but do it entirely in English. First, I will answer 3 emails. Then I need to check the project status. After that, I will call the supplier. This just keeps English active in your mind. It makes it a natural part of your cognitive landscape, so it doesn't just feel like a subject you study in a classroom. And because it's totally silent, there's absolutely zero pressure. No fear of mistakes. It's pure mental rehearsal.
So that makes the eventual transition to speaking so much smoother. You've already preloaded the language you need before the conversation even starts.
You've warmed up the engine.
Okay, so habit 5 builds directly on that one. It's the external version.
Right.
Talk to yourself out loud. So whether you're alone in the car, walking the dog, in the shower, what are the unique benefits of actually hearing your own voice say the words beyond just thinking them?
This is a huge step because it moves us from purely mental practice into physical production.
Yeah.
And it addresses 2 very specific challenges for learners: confidence building and word retrieval.
Let's start with confidence. I know a lot of learners feel physically uncomfortable hearing themselves speak English. Maybe they're shy about their accent or their rhythm.
That self-consciousness is a massive, massive barrier. By practicing out loud in a completely safe, judgment-free zone, your own space, you start to neutralize that anxiety. You get comfortable with the sound, the acoustics of your own voice speaking English. It's kind of like self-exposure therapy for speaking anxiety. You're teaching your nervous system that it's safe and normal to make these sounds.
And then there's the word retrieval problem, that dreaded moment when you know a word, but it won't come out when you need it.
A classic symptom. It means the neural connections between understanding a word and actually producing it are weak. You comprehend it. It's in your memory somewhere. But the pathway to your mouth is too slow or too weak. The source material emphasizes that talking to yourself helps you retrieve those words faster because you are actively exercising that entire pathway from thought to speech.
So you're practicing the whole sequence.
The whole sequence.
Yeah.
When you describe your weekend out loud or you pretend to have an argument with someone in your head, you're forcing your brain to locate and use words quickly. You're simulating the rapid demands of a real conversation.
And this is another place where the habits connect so beautifully. This is the perfect low-pressure time to actively use those 1 to 3 new vocabulary words you learned in Habit 3.
Exactly. You are immediately applying the new information. You move a word from just being a concept on a flashcard to being a physical sound that you make. So if your word for the day was efficient, you could talk about your day out loud. My meeting today was very efficient. We finished in 20 minutes. You're practicing the pronunciation, the grammar, everything all at once. It's the perfect preparation for a real conversation because you can find and fix your own mistakes without the embarrassment of doing it in front of someone else.
We're now moving into the habits that are designed for reinforcement and for structured practice. This is our 6th habit, and it's a classic tool for learners. Read a little bit every day.
Reading is absolutely indispensable for fluency. But the key to actually sticking with it, as the source highlights again and again, is to keep that commitment threshold low. So that means reading only a little bit, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and this is crucial, choosing material that is both engaging and level appropriate.
I can just imagine so many beginners who grab a classic novel, struggle through the first page, feel totally overwhelmed by all the new vocabulary, and then just give up on reading entirely.
And that frustration is exactly what this habit is designed to avoid. The main goal here isn't just to consume words. It's about the steady, quiet absorption of contextual grammar and structure.
Ah.
When you read, you're seeing endless examples of full, correct sentences. You start to internalize the proper placement of adjectives, how to use conjunctions, the little nuances of verb tenses, and you do it all without having to study abstract grammar rules from a textbook.
So it's like a passive way of getting a grammar lesson. You're just seeing it in action over and over again.
Precisely. And reading provides new words that are naturally embedded in their correct context, which is so much better than just memorizing a list. For example, you might learn the verb to depend, and then you see it used with the preposition on over and over again. You don't have to memorize a rule that says depend takes on. Your brain just absorbs the pattern through exposure. And this continuous stream of correct linguistic modeling, it silently supports both your writing and your speaking skills.
So what kind of materials are we talking about here? The kind that guarantee low friction and high enjoyment?
We have to move beyond the textbook. Start with things that are short and accessible. There are simplified news articles online designed specifically for learners, engaging blog posts on topics you actually care about, gardening, technology, whatever it is, even simple webcomics. The source also specifically mentions using social media. The short captions on Instagram posts or posts on LinkedIn often use very common high-frequency everyday language, and they're naturally very brief. The moment reading starts to feel like a chore, the learning stops. So the core rule is read for enjoyment.
And that continuity of just 5 or 10 minutes of correct, natural English input every day provides a really powerful structural foundation for everything else.
A very powerful foundation.
Okay, so now we are going to move to writing. This is our first sustained practice in deliberate, structured output. Habit 7 is to write a short journal entry every day. This is where we take our internal thoughts and we solidify them into structured English. So how short does this entry have to be to keep that necessary low commitment?
The beauty of this habit is right there in its limitation. The material specifies that the magic number is 3 or 4 sentences. That's it. No more. And this is a crucial psychological barrier breaker.
3 or 4 sentences. I mean, that feels almost insignificant, which I'm guessing is the entire point.
That is the entire point. If we tell our brain, you have to write a full page every day, the brain immediately puts up resistance. That's a high-effort task. It's daunting.
Yeah, I'm already procrastinating just thinking about it.
Exactly. By limiting the demand to just 3 or 4 sentences, the effort seems negligible. It's too small to fail. And that ensures you'll actually do it every day, which, as we know, is the engine of fluency. This habit isn't about writing a masterpiece. It's purely about the active use of English to express a thought.
So what should the content of those 3 or 4 sentences be about? What do I write?
They should just be about immediate personal expression. You can summarize your day. You can write about how you're feeling. You could list your plans for tomorrow, for example. I felt exhausted today, but I did manage to finish my big project. I am really looking forward to seeing my friends tomorrow night. I need to remember to buy some milk on the way home.
Simple.
Very simple. But that exercise forces you to take an abstract thought and turn it into a concrete written sentence.
And why is writing this down more effective than just saying it out loud when I'm talking to myself?
Because writing forces a kind of deliberate precision. It activates different systems in your brain. When you're speaking, you can rely more on rhythm and automaticity, and you can often get away with, slightly broken grammar.
Sure.
When you write, you have to consciously choose the correct spelling, the correct verb tense, the accurate word order. It reinforces the new vocabulary from Habit 3 and the correct grammar you've been seeing in your reading from Habit 6 because you are actively producing it yourself. You're solidifying all that knowledge through a physical action.
And what about mistakes? I mean, they're guaranteed to happen in this process. Should the learner be stopping and looking up every single grammar rule as they write?
The material is very clear on this.
Yeah.
When you are writing only for yourself, the main goal is just flow and practice. Don't stop to correct every little thing immediately. The main idea is to get used to the process of building and completing an idea in English. This is your safe space, a low-stakes environment for reflection and practice to happen at the same time. You're reinforcing what you've learned without the pressure of needing a perfect final product.
So writing just 3 or 4 sentences every day transforms that passive knowledge into an active, concrete skill, and it does it all without causing burnout. It really is a highly efficient model for practice.
It's incredibly efficient.
Okay, that brings us to habit number 8, which deals with what might be the biggest emotional challenge in learning a language: the fear of making errors. The material states, pretty unequivocally, that mistakes are our best teachers. So for someone who associates mistakes with failure or with embarrassment, how do we actually make that huge shift in perspective?
This is maybe the most important mindset shift a language learner can make. The very first step is to redefine what a mistake even means. A mistake is not a failure. It is concrete, positive proof that you are actively trying to produce the language. And that is the only way you will ever become fluent. It also gives you invaluable, completely customized feedback.
So if someone corrects me in conversation, my first instinct might be to kind of withdraw or feel embarrassed.
And that's the learned response we have to fight against. Instead of feeling embarrassed, the material encourages you to feel happy or even grateful.
Happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why? Because that person just gave you a free, perfectly tailored lesson. They have pinpointed the exact gap in your current knowledge of the language. You now know precisely what you need to study or practice next.
So mistakes are just actionable data points. They're not judgments on my ability.
Precisely. And this leads directly to the practical tool that's recommended, the mistake notebook, or a dedicated list on your phone, whatever works. This tool transforms that abstract fear into a concrete, solvable problem.
So how does it work?
Whenever you make a common error, maybe a partner points it out, or a teacher, or you find it yourself when you're reviewing your journal from Habit 7, you document it.
Can you give me a specific example? Like, what would an entry in this notebook look like?
Absolutely. You just write down the incorrect phrase that you used, and then you write the correct version right next to it. You're mapping your own personal error pattern. So, for instance, a common one is using articles. You might write, incorrect, I went to park today. And then, correct, I went to the park today.
Ah, okay.
Another really common one is forgetting the as for the third person singular verb. So you'd write, incorrect, he goes to work. Correct, he goes to work. By documenting this, you move away from that vague, unhelpful self-criticism of, oh, I'm just bad at grammar, to a very specific, actionable task. I need to practice the third-person S rule this week.
That focus seems incredibly powerful. It directs your energy away from this generalized anxiety and puts it right onto a specific training goal.
And it ensures you don't just keep making the same mistakes over and over forever. Mistakes are simply signposts. They're showing you exactly where you need to improve. By tracking and reviewing these error patterns, you're actively embracing them as necessary positive steps forward in your journey. You're teaching your brain the difference between what it thought was right and what is right.
Okay, so we've built up our input skills, our internal processing, and our reinforcement systems. Now, Habit 9 forces us to take all of that knowledge and integrate it into the real world.
The application phase?
Exactly, which is Habit 9, speak with a partner or an app. Now, for many learners, this is the most intimidating step of all, speaking with a real person. The material recognizes this anxiety, but it insists that this step is absolutely necessary for real fluency. So my question is, if I'm doing a good job with shadowing and talking to myself, isn't that enough practice? What specific element of a real-time conversation is my internal practice missing?
That is an excellent and a really challenging question. Internal practice builds your readiness. It loads the vocabulary into your brain. It strengthens the production muscles in your mouth. But a real-time conversation introduces several unique, vital factors that you can never replicate on your own.
Okay, what are those factors?
First and foremost, unpredictability. A real conversation is spontaneous. You have absolutely no control over what the other person is going to say. This forces your brain to do several things at once, immediately. Listen, comprehend what was said, retrieve your own words, and formulate a response. All of this under time pressure.
In reaction time.
Exactly. That's the second factor. Your internal self-talk can pause whenever you want. You can take 5 seconds to find a word. A real conversation demands an almost instantaneous response. It forces you to achieve true automaticity.
And I guess the third thing is just understanding how people actually talk.
Yes. Understanding non-ideal speech. You have to process real spoken English, which includes natural hesitations, a rapid pace, slang, maybe an accent, maybe unclear pronunciation. These are skills you can only practice by interacting with other real human beings.
So it forces us to go from this controlled, self-directed output to a spontaneous, responsive interaction. It's the difference between, I guess, practicing a song alone in your room and then performing it live on stage.
That is the perfect analogy. It's the moment of performance where all the training from habits 4 and 5, the thinking and the self-talk, have to be put into external action. Speaking with someone is necessary to cement that transition from passive knowledge into an active functional skill.
Okay, but what if shyness or just not having available partners is a major obstacle? What's the solution?
The material offers very practical solutions here. Modern technology has basically eliminated the need for you to be in the same physical space as someone. You can use language exchange platforms. There are dedicated apps that connect learners from all over the world. You can find a native English speaker who's trying to learn your language, and it becomes a mutually beneficial exchange.
And if you're really, really shy,
Start smaller. The source suggests you can start by just sending short voice messages on an app like WhatsApp. This simulates a conversational response, but it takes away the pressure of an immediate live interaction. You get a time to think and compose your response.
and the commitment here, I'm guessing, still has to follow that low friction rule.
Absolutely. The recommendation is 5 minutes every single day if you can, rather than one intense, overwhelming 30-minute call once a week.
Right?
The goal is just regular, brief exposure to the stress of spontaneous conversation. That's how you build confidence and speed. This is the final testing ground, the vital step that moves you from being a confident internal speaker to a confident external communicator.
Okay, we've arrived at the 10th and final habit. And the blueprint surprisingly calls this one perhaps the most important one. And it is. Enjoy English every day. Why would your attitude toward learning actually be more important than the mechanics of learning?
Because without motivation, every single one of the mechanical habits we just discussed, the shadowing, the writing, the vocabulary, they will all eventually fail. If learning English consistently feels like a chore or just another academic requirement on your to-do list, daily consistency becomes impossible to maintain long-term. Motivation, which is driven by enjoyment, is the fuel. It's the fuel that powers the entire engine of daily habit formation.
So how do we actually do that? How do we make English a joyful activity that's just part of our lives instead of treating it like it's homework?
The solution is wonderfully simple. Integrate English into your existing passions and hobbies. Stop thinking of English practice as a separate academic thing you have to do.
So connect it to what you already love.
Exactly. Do you love movies? Watch them with English audio and English subtitles. Do you love music? Listen to English songs. Find the lyrics online and sing along with them. The source actually notes that singing is a fantastic, high-retention way to practice your pronunciation and your rhythm.
And this would apply even to really specific interests, not just general media consumption.
Absolutely. If you love to cook, follow a few English language cooking channels on YouTube. If you're passionate about a specific sport, switch your news sources over to English language sports commentators or websites. Even playing video games in English, reading the instructions, following the dialogue, communicating with other players online, all of it counts as valuable and, more importantly, enjoyable input.
So the ultimate goal, then, is to move English out of this abstract learning category and into the concrete, fulfilling category of just daily life.
When you connect English to enjoyment, you will naturally want to engage with it more often, and you won't have to rely on forced discipline. Enjoyment drives frequency. Frequency drives automaticity. And automaticity, as we've seen through all 10 of these habits, is what drives true, lasting fluency. It's about building a sustainable, positive, and deeply integrated relationship with the language itself.
We have just completed a really intensive deep dive into 10 small, but I think incredibly powerful daily habits. They really are a robust blueprint for getting to fluency. And the core philosophy that ties them all together is so clear. Small steps, when they're driven by relentless consistency, build huge, irreversible progress.
And to quickly recap how it all fits together, we start with that foundational input, that's habit 1, listening daily. Then we immediately transition that into physical production with habit 2, shadowing.
Right.
We build our internal substance through small, quality vocabulary work in habit 3, and we gain mental speed by actively thinking in English in habit 4. Then we build our conversational readiness and our confidence by talking to ourselves in habit 5.
And then we move into reinforcement and refinement. We absorb correct structure through quiet reading in habit 6, and we practice our deliberate output with minimal writing in habit 7. We turn anxiety into a tool for progress by actively learning from mistakes in habit 8. And finally, we apply all of it in the real world by speaking with a partner in habit 9. And the glue that holds it all together is the ultimate motivator, enjoying English, habit 10.
And those 10 micro habits, when you put them all together, they ensure you're practicing all 4 of the crucial domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing every day. And you're underpinning all of that work with a positive and, most importantly, sustainable attitude.
So now, for you, the listener, the immediate application is the most important part. Do not try to start all 10 of these habits today. That would defeat the whole purpose.
Please don't.
Choose just one or two of these low-commitment actions. Maybe it's 10 minutes of listening to a podcast on your commute and learning one new, contextually rich word. Start that small habit today and just feel that momentum begin to build.
And let's end by building a little further on the immense power of habit forethinking in English. Imagine this. Imagine successfully describing a really detailed, complex memory like a difficult negotiation you had at work or a vivid trip from your childhood. Entirely in English, but just silently, in your own mind, before you ever try to speak about it out loud. If you can achieve that complete mental rehearsal, structuring complex ideas and arguments entirely within the target language, then what highly demanding real-life scenario, a future professional presentation, a complex interaction with a customer, a formal debate, could you silently master in English first, making the final public delivery feel almost automatic and effortless? You can use this mental preparation not just for daily life, but for all of your biggest future linguistic goals.